The president of the UFC and its longtime public face, Dana White, is also one of the sport's most outspoken figures. Dana White is as well known to the general public as any of the fighters he manages for his organization. And for this video, we want to highlight some of his recent vicious verbal attacks. These are the top 10 Dana White moments in UFC annals. Number 10. Bob Arum. Anyone who is even remotely familiar with Dana knows his bitter history with famed boxing promoter Bob Arum. White has always reserved some pretty pointed language for Arum. When asked about his rival's public statements about his fighters and their value, Dana went on to poke fun at Arum, ridiculing him for his general conduct. Arum, who has worked in sports during the days of Muhammad Ali, can be counted on to give a critical review of UFC and their work. At one point, he even described the MMA as a home for a skinhead. Imagine me telling this man, "Oh, I have to pay Conor McGregor this much money. I could have built a house in Beverly Hills," and adding, "How I pay them is not their concern. It's mine. Shut up, you scumbag, and pay your fighter what you owe them. That's your responsibility, Bob." At 89, Arum is a bit of a good night, everyone. When it comes to competing against his MMA counterpart, Bob still has some gas left in the tank. But it appears like Dana has been gaining the upper hand more and more lately. Number 9. Oscar De La Hoya. We're going to have to exercise some severe self-control so that we don't just make this entire video about Dana's numerous hilarious insults thrown in the direction of boxing's Oscar De La Hoya. Seriously, these two have been going back and forth for years now, with Dana responding with childish glee whenever Oscar's name is brought up, as if he's dying once more to bury him verbally. You can be sure that Dana was waiting for the media to question De La Hoya when he made headlines for agreeing to fight MMA legend Vitor Belfort once more in the boxing ring. Dana responded without even a hint of a smirk. "Cocaine ain't cheap." She then asked, "I'm a good friend of yours. Oscar De La Hoya has announced he's coming out of retirement to box again. I just wondered if he had any cocaine. It's not cheap, it's expensive, and he's got to make money," adding, "Cocaine isn't cheap." The media room was left in awkward stillness as most of them probably wanted to laugh but refrained. It was a razor-sharp one-liner that was only made better by the tense moment that followed. Number 8. Ariel Helwani. The conflict between Dana White and Ariel Helwani dates back to the veteran reporter's earliest days covering the sport. Helwani, a cunning journalist underneath his more friendly exterior, once attempted to persuade Dana to criticize the State Athletic Commission for allowing Steve Mazzagatti, another of Dana's adversaries, to continue to referee fights despite his poor reputation for stopping fights too late. White, being the shrewd businessman he is, just urged Ariel to stop talking before rerouting the inquiry. Is it accurate to say that Keith Kaiser is not performing his duties as Commissioner of the State of Nevada due to this and other decisions? Ariel, you already responded to that question. Would you say, Ariel, that Keith Kaiser is doing the state of Nevada a disservice by keeping Mazzagatti in that position? Yes, that's right. If there is one thing that can be said about the president of the UFC, it is that he is an expert at handling persistent journalists and has a demonstrable talent for fending off media pressure. When you enter a UFC press conference, you are essentially entering Dana White's domain because, as Helwani has discovered repeatedly, Dana White is in charge whenever he takes the podium. Number 7. Andy Wang. Andy Wang's hilarious run on The Ultimate Fighter saw him get kicked off BJ Penn's team for failing to follow instructions, then alienated his new team by refusing to comprehend why he was fired. When it came time for Wang to leave the show, at a loss eventually, he sobbed in one of the most embarrassing, challenging moments. Dana White, who works with tens of thousands of fighters annually, is well aware of what it takes to succeed at the highest level, and he believes that Andy Wang falls far short of that standard. This is insane. He's like him and Han. You know he's disrespecting gens now. I'm starting to see why BJ was so pissed. I want to kill Andy Wang in the end. Andy Wang's MMA career never really took off as White predicted, once again proving that Dana is a savage and had no problem explaining this to him in great detail. making it clear to Wang that he wasn't wasting several funny clips that are still publicly accessible online, have cemented Wang's place in MMA history for all time. Number 6. Conor McGregor. The news of Conor McGregor and a group of his friends attacking the Red Corner team bus before UFC 223 was among the biggest shocks of the sporting year. Dana is known to defend or deflect criticism that his fighters face in this case. But the media response was too great for him to sit idly by. Instead, White aimed at the Irishman, calling the incident one of the most egregious in sports history. And as you would expect, he later calmed down and began to see the dollar signs again. This day in MMA history will be forever known as the one that made Dana turn on his most prized asset these days. The two are related. So obviously, everyone's shaking up when 30 thugs storm. You know, these guys are all cutting weight and getting ready for a fight. This is the most disgusting thing that has ever happened in the company's history. However, for a split second, it seemed as though Dana and Conor were about to cross a line that could not be crossed. Thankfully, money talks, and these two have made a lot of money together. If you enjoyed this video and want to support our channel, please leave a like to help watch MMA rise to the top of YouTube MMA. Number 5. Tito Ortiz. They were once friends, with Dana White serving as Tito's coach before things went south and they eventually became sworn enemies. Things got so bad between these two that they were set to compete in an exhibition boxing match before Oscar De La Hoya. We could have easily made a video devoted to Dana White's constant berating of the former UFC light heavyweight champion Tito Ortiz. Before Ortiz's decision to withdraw, they were set to compete in an exhibition boxing battle. Say what you will about that choice, but in Dana's opinion, Ortiz did it out of fear, according to the UFC press. White and Ortiz have sparred enough rounds in the boxing gym for Tito to fully grasp how a showdown would have played out if it were an MMA battle. If it were an MMA bout, Tito would kill me. Yes, it would be the most horrifying beating you have ever witnessed, and it would be pleasant. I would beat him up in a boxing match and make him look foolish. However, could you imagine how hilarious a Dana White vs. Tito Ortiz press conference would be? He would double leg me, smash me against the fence, be like a Habib Smith, and put his hands through my head. However, it would be worse if Tito put his elbows through my skull. Number 4. Canelo Alvarez. Despite his connections to some promoters he frequently criticizes, Dana has admitted that he is a fan of boxing champion Canelo Alvarez. When a photo of him was circulated showing him watching Canelo's match against Caleb Plant during his strawweight title fight, the media brought it up with him. In the post-event press conference, Dana made no effort to hide the fact that he was watching two fight events at the same time, announcing to the world that he had $100,000 on Canelo to win by knockout. This wager, thankfully, was successful. I watched the fight because I was curious to know, how did you wager? I placed a $100,000 bet on their knockout victory. It was White's wonderfully muted reaction to Dana's query about whether or not he had paid for the Canelo pay-per-view. Did you pay for it? Dana is not often left without the perfect retort, so this moment is undoubtedly one for the history books. Number 3. Luke Rockhold. However, Dana White noticed Luke Rockhold's egotistical tendencies when he was asked to respond to some recent comments the former middleweight champion made to the press. While Rockhold receives a lot of criticism and does himself no favors through his conceit and general demeanor, people frequently forget just how good of a fighter he was during his best years. Well, he informed Rockhold that he wasn't deserving of anything because he had just been knocked out. Still, he added, "Get out of here! Listen, I was thinking about this when I spoke to some of the media here yesterday. You know there were a lot of guys talking about deserve and nobody deserves anything, you gotta earn it here. As in, I deserve this, and I just got knocked out in the first round. You don't deserve anything, you got to come back and earn it." Dana can be harsh, but we'd argue that this was a genuine 10-8 round in his favor. Rockhold has been battling to regain his form recently, but when even your boss finds your chin, you know things are bad. Number 2. Steve Mazzagatti. Steve Mazzagatti is, without a doubt, Dana's least favorite referee to have ever officiated a UFC match. As the match ended, Mazzagatti and White got very heated. Dana even referred to Mazzagatti as a danger to fight safety and said that the Nevada State Athletic Commission would keep him around until he seriously injured someone. Mazzagatti had made some poor decisions during the fight, but despite that, Mazzagatti was still dangerous. Number 1. Oscar De La Hoya. What a better way to conclude this video than with one last jab at Oscar De La Hoya. The president of Golden Boy Promotions has never been afraid to criticize Dana and the UFC, at one point comparing their fighter pay structures to boxing. Oscar White, who laughed off Oscar De La Hoya's comments, brought up the pitiful payouts given to those who competed in Oscar's first Golden Boy MMA event. That payout was so low that it immediately ended any chance of the former champion boxer making a comeback. This cat organized a battle for Golden Boy Promotions, which had 9 bouts amongst 18 combatants, with total payouts of $36,500 for each contest. On a Golden Boy De La Hoya show, the average fighter's purse is $2,000. Oscar De La Hoya financed the full fight card, but Volkanovski received additional compensation for donning his UFC Venom gear. Do you get what I'm saying? I could continue, but everyone understood the point. It is safe to say that conflicts between White and De La Hoya often go one way and one way alone. If you enjoyed today's video and want to see more, leave a like and comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with our latest uploads.